Okay, welcome everybody. Today is the 27th of February, 2024, and today we are continuing our series on Be Healthy, Be Happy. Today is week number 2 of the lecture series, and I'm going to be leading the presentation today, and the topic is going to be demystifying nutrition. So what do I mean by demystifying nutrition? So one of the biggest things, and surely you can appreciate this as a health and fitness professional, one of the biggest things that people probably ask you about, Shirley, is about diet and nutrition and what should I eat and what should I not eat and what did you hear about this and I just heard about this, I just read about this, is this good, is this bad, what do you think about this? There's just so much conflicting information about nutrition and food out there that one of my most enjoyable presentations that I do is this series called Demystifying Nutrition, where I take topics that are in the news that people know about, but people don't really have an understanding of. And my intent is to clarify it and to bring clarity and understanding and awareness of these nutrition topics that are really important to our daily life in terms of foods that we can practically incorporate into our life to live healthier. So that's what demystifying nutrition is all about. And today, let me pull up the PowerPoint for today. All right, can you guys see this?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So the topic today is demystifying nutrition. And what are we going to be talking about? So in the half hour, we're going to be talking about 2 different topics, one of which you probably almost assuredly have heard of, probiotics and prebiotics. And lots of us are going, yeah, I've heard of it, but I don't know what they are, and I don't know what the difference is. Or I've heard of probiotics, but I've never heard of prebiotics. And so we're going to be talking about the difference between the two of those. And the second topic is something that most people have not heard about, and that is resistant starches. Shirley, have you heard of that? Resistant starches? Have you heard of those?
Yes, I have. Sorry.
You have? Wow.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I would expect as a health and nutrition expert, I'm not surprised that you have. Adrienne, how about you? Have you heard of resistant starches?
No.
No. Yeah. No. Okay, great. So you'll learn something new. And resistant starches are really a great way to add fiber into our diet. So let's get on with the show. I'm going to start with this YouTube video, which really nicely explains the difference between probiotics and prebiotics. I may have to, I don't know if you can see this. You'll let me know if you can see it or if I have to stop sharing. Can you see the YouTube?
No, I just still see the PowerPoint.
All right. Give me one sec. I'm going to stop and share I'm going to stop and I'm going to share this new screen with you. So give me a second.
Okay. Yep.
Thanks everybody for your patience. All right.
Your gut. So what consists of trillions of little microorganisms that make up what's called the human microbiome. These superheroes are working hard to keep you healthy every minute of every day, and diversity in your microbiome is critical to this. The greatest concentration of your superheroes lives in your gut, so what you ingest can have a profound effect on them. With so much talk about pre- and probiotics, let's find out what they are and how they can impact you. What are probiotics? Probiotics, like bacteria and yeast, are live microorganisms that you ingest. When you consume enough of these active helpers, you're adding to the diversity of your gut microbiome, and that can help keep you strong, healthy, and resilient to invasions by bad microbes. Your microbiome loves probiotics. If you want ongoing probiotic benefits, you should consume them continuously in the form of probiotic supplements or probiotic fortified foods. When you stop taking probiotics, the population of those microorganisms in your gut goes back down. This means fewer superheroes and less diversity. Prebiotics are food for probiotics. So while you take your probiotic supplements, you want to consume things that contain prebiotics too. This will help your helpers thrive. Promoting the diversity in your microbiome is just as easy as having diversity on your plate. You can eat naturally occurring prebiotics from fibers and starches, like fruit and root vegetables, grains like barley, rye, and whole grains, and also fermented foods like yogurt and honey. Buyer beware. Protect yourself and stay informed. As much as these active helpers are good for you, probiotics are not yet regulated like other foods or medicines, so do your homework. Speak with your doctor or pharmacist about the probiotics listed on the package. Each bacterial strain is unique and will have a different health impact. Choose the one that is best for you. Make sure they're alive. Look for labels that say active or live culture. Labels will also need a best before date and specific storage instructions. Find out even more. Your microbiome is a relatively new field of study with lots of new facts emerging every day. Search the internet or scientific journals for credible sources of information to help you choose the right probiotic for you. The CDHF wants you to know that a healthy microbiome means a healthy you. Understand, take control, live better.
All right, so that gives you a rough idea, an introduction to the difference between probiotics and prebiotics. Let's continue with the PowerPoint now. Okay, so what did we learn from the PowerPoint? We learned that probiotics, when we ingest probiotics, they lend to the synthesis, the creation of healthy bacteria. These are the probiotics. Surely you would remember this because we're from that same era of, remember the Pac-Man? Remember the Pac-Man videos from the 1980s?
Yes.
The hum, 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 hum. Adriana, you'd be too young to remember. I love, maybe your parents would remember Pac-Man. Do you know Pac-Man, Adriana?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not like as familiar, but yeah,
Right,
I do know.
right. Well, that's from Shirley and mine era when videos were just starting. Do you remember that? Like it was one of the first video games. Do you remember that, Shirley?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. And so there would be Adriana, just to give you some tidbits of the previous generation. When these games came out, there were no computers, right? You couldn't play anything on. There was no such thing as laptops or desktops or anything like that. You had to go into arcades, and you had to play. And they'd be these big machines where you could play these video games. And one of the first video games that came out, this was like in the 1980s, was called Pac-Man. And basically you had these little people, these little things exactly like probiotics, who would munch away at these, well, as you can see here, this is a perfect example. It's a perfect Pac-Man example right here, because the Pac-Man would eat and mulch all these little things, and you had to use your joystick to get these Pac-Man or probiotics to munch, and you get points for how much food these Pac-Man or probiotics would eat. So this is a really good analogy, because the prebiotics are really what the Pac-Man would eat. They would munch on these prebiotics, and the prebiotics, what are they? They are food. They are food. They are the broken down components of foods that we eat that are high in prebiotics. So what are the prebiotics themselves? It's the energy that probiotics need to stay alive. So we eat foods that are high in different probiotics to create bacteria. These bacteria, these healthy bacteria, will then feed on prebiotics, and the prebiotics come from foods that are high in prebiotics. And we'll go into what some of those foods are in a little bit. So again, let's talk about the differences. We'll go over to probiotics first. Probiotics are active living organisms that will give birth to healthy bacteria in our gut. And why is that important? Because the healthy bacteria that are born from probiotics help fight harmful bacteria. So that's why it's really good for your microbiome, your digestive system, your colon, to be highly populated with probiotics, with this healthy bacteria, because the more healthy bacteria you have, the better your gut is able to fight off infection. And how do these probiotics stay alive? They stay alive by eating prebiotics. So prebiotics are non-living, non-digestible forms of fiber, whereas the probiotics are the food that is created. Sorry, the food that lends to the creation of active and healthy bacteria. Probiotics are live microorganisms, whereas the prebiotics, which is the food that the healthy bacteria thrive on, are non-living. So once again, Probiotics, active bacteria. Prebiotics are non-living. They are the carbohydrates that the bacteria, the healthy bacteria, probiotics live on. So this is why, especially if you've ever been prescribed a course of antibiotics, why it's really important, especially at that time, to be upping your probiotics, because the antibiotics, as opposed to probiotics, the antibiotics, while they will help fight infection, they will also reduce the population of the healthy bacteria in your gut, which is why when you're taking a course of antibiotics, it's always important to up your amount of probiotics. And of course, that would be something that you would talk about with your healthcare provider if you are being prescribed antibiotics. I see a question there. I love the visual. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. That's great. Now let's go on to the next slide. Thank you very much for that compliment. I appreciate that. All right. So this is the most important thing. So foods that are high in probiotics. So here we go. Some of these are familiar to you. Some of these may not be familiar to you, but all of these foods are high in probiotics. Now, I don't know if anybody can answer this question, but if you look at all these foods, what is the one common thing that all these foods have? You can't see the word here. The word does not appear on the screen, but they all contain, or they all have this one thing, this one nutritional component in common. What is that? Do either of you know? Take a guess. Okay, so both of the, oh, Shirley.
Oh.
Sorry. Try again. Open up your mic. There you go.
Okay. Oh, they're fermented.
100%. They are all fermented. So that's the fermentation process is what creates probiotic food. So yogurt and kefir is fermented dairy, fermented milk. Now, I love kefir. I try and have kefir every day. I also try and eat yogurt every day for breakfast also, but also in the middle of the day, I also try and have a glass of kefir too. Anybody know the difference between yogurt and kefir by any chance?
I actually don't, but I'd like to know.
Sure. So they're both fermented from dairy. The difference is, Shirley, do you know the difference?
No, I don't know.
Well, clearly, one obvious one is that yogurt it's a thicker, pastier form of fermented dairy. Kefir is more liquidy. It's a drink. Yogurt is not a drink as much as it is a food. But the more important difference is kefir actually has more probiotics than yogurt does. So it's interesting how yogurt has always been characterized or marketed and promoted as like the ultimate dairy probiotic food, right? If you go to the yogurt section of the supermarket, I mean, there's shelf after shelf after shelf. Like there's a whole case full, right? Almost like a half an aisle full. I go to the Metro near my house, and the part of the dairy section that is yogurts is almost the entire length of this dairy case. It's all yogurt. And then in one tiny section, there's like 3 or 4 different types of kefir. That's it. It's very tiny. But kefir, if you're looking to add probiotics from a dairy source, I would definitely go with kefir because it has more probiotics milliliter per milliliter. All right, difference between sauerkraut and kimchi, or let me put it this way, the similarities between sauerkraut and kimchi. What is it? Either of you know? Okay, Adriana, you want to take a guess?
I literally have no idea.
Okay, I'm
They're both
sorry.
cabbage.
I'm
Yeah, they're
sorry.
both cabbage.
Adriana, you've lost 20 points. I'm sorry. Okay, Shirley, you're still in the lead. That's good. The similarities is that they are both cabbage. Both of them are cabbage. Both of them are fermented cabbage. The difference is sauerkraut is the German style of fermented cabbage, and kimchi is the Korean style of fermented cabbage. But both of them are fermented. Now, here's the thing: if you're looking to, I mean, I don't know if either of you have tried kimchi. It's kind of have either of you tried kimchi before?
I have.
Yeah, I
you
have
like-
as well.
You have not. Shirley,
No.
what's your verdict?
I have.
Do you like it?
I like it. I don't love it.
Right.
I'd rather have sauerkraut.
Right. Sauerkraut is much more of a more palatable taste. I agree. I agree. Now, if you're looking for sauerkraut that is high in probiotics, I'm going to make a suggestion to you, and that is do not buy sauerkraut that is bottled, like the conventional kind of commercialized sauerkraut that you find on the shelves of supermarkets, because most of it will contain vinegar, and the vinegar it inhibits the amount of probiotics that the sauerkraut has. It's the same thing with pickles. So pickles are also, you can get, pickles are high in probiotics because they are fermented, but the kind of pickles that you typically get on a supermarket shelf do not have a lot of probiotics because they are made with vinegar. If you're looking for a pickle that is high in probiotics, look for, and you can find them in the supermarket, but you have to read the label carefully. You want to find a pickle that does not have vinegar in it. And there are those types because I've had them myself. And if you like pickles, and you can find pickles with that vinegar in your supermarket, they are an excellent source of fermented food, therefore an excellent source of probiotics. Let's go on to tempeh. Okay, anybody know what tempeh is? I just had tempeh last night for dinner. Tempeh is, either of you tried it?
Yes, I'm vegan, so we have it all the time.
Yeah, I like it. Do you enjoy
I
it?
love it. Yeah.
Adriana?
I've tried it, but don't ask me what's in it because I have no idea.
Okay, so what tempeh, you know what tofu is. Both of you know what tofu is, right? So tofu and tempeh actually come from the same source. They're both soy. They are both soy protein, right? The difference is tempeh is fermented. Soy is not fermented, whereas tempeh is fermented. So if you're looking to get a vegetarian or vegan source of protein and you want to get your probiotics in at the same time, I would definitely opt for tempeh over tofu. The only difference is that tempeh is not soft. So you can get your tofu, which is soft, medium, and firm, whereas tempeh is very firm. Right? It's like a block, and it's not as, although you can get there is a Henry's is the brand of tempeh that I buy. Is that the brand that you buy, Shirley? Henry's?
No, I don't know what it is that I buy it, to be quite honest. I can't remember what it is.
Okay. The reason I say that is Henry's also makes a crumbled type of tempeh. So, and that would be a little bit more easy to use if you're looking to, make patties or something like that more easily. Now, miso is fermented soybean also, which is made into a paste. Natto is also the same thing, except natto, the difference between miso and natto, both of them are Japanese foods. They're from Japan. Both of them are highly fermented. But miso is more of a paste. I've never had miso before. Have either of you had miso soup before, or miso?
I have it all the time.
You
It's
do?
so good. It's
I
so
love
good.
it.
Is it
I
really?
love it. It's
I've
so
never
good.
had it before. Can you buy it in the supermarket?
Yeah, you just like can go and buy miso paste and then like put it in water and it's like the best thing ever.
Well, you put it like what do? You just put it like you boil, you pour hot water over it, or what do you actually do, or how do you use
I
it?
think usually I put like water in a pot, like as if I was making a soup, and then put like like a tablespoon of miso in it, and then you just stir it up and it becomes like a miso soup.
Oh, I see. Oh, I see. Is that how you
Hmm.
use it? Shirley, is that how you use it?
I just boil water in the kettle and then I put my paste in. Now it does, somebody at the nutrition store told me to let the water, like if I'm boiling it, let the water stop boiling it before I add the paste, because for some reason it reacts to the probiotics, so you don't get as many.
Oh, interesting. So you let
So
it cool, you let the water cool a little bit.
I let the water just stop rolling boil for
Oh,
about a
okay.
minute, and then I add the water. So it's still very hot, but just not a rolling boil.
Okay. And then you put, and how much miso do you put in?
I think it's to taste. I like mine, like I like the taste of it. So I probably, it's salty tasting.
I was just going to ask you if it's very high in, so is it high in sodium?
Yes.
Okay.
It is, but so yeah, it's a matter of taste.
Right. Okay. And now natto is fermented soybeans also, except the difference is it's fermented whole soybeans. So you can see a picture that looks like beans, and they're just fermented. I've never either of you had natto before, Adriana?
No, I haven't.
Oh, Adriana, you've lost another 20 points. I'm sorry, Adriana.
I'm
You're
in the
out of
whole
the
negative
game.
40.
Our winner is today is Shirley, who's going to come back next week. And we don't know who our challenger is next week, but she's going to come back next week and she's going to challenge the challenger for a year's supply of miso paste. Yes, a year's supply of miso paste for the winner of next week's challenge. Now, it could be natto. I don't know. I haven't spoken to my distributor yet. All right. And then kombucha. Okay, you know what? Anybody know what kombucha is? Kombucha is also fermented. Can you guess what it is? Can't
I know
hear.
that I know that kombucha is like an organism or it's like alive and then they ferment it or something like that. I remember hearing that.
Right. Well, Shirley, do you know what it is?
No, I don't actually.
Well, take a look at that picture. What does that picture look like?
It's tea. It looks like tea.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. It's fermented tea. It's
Okay.
fermented green
I
tea
was
or
gonna say
fermented.
that.
Yeah, fermented tea. That's exactly what it is. So these are all of these are fermented, all of these are fermented products. Cheese also, cheddar cheese is also high in probiotics. I don't think that cheese is fermented. I don't know. But I do know that it is high in probiotics. All right, let's go on to the next slide. Now, foods that are high in prebiotics. So remember we were talking about prebiotics as being the foods that the healthy bacteria inside our body eat. So the healthy bacteria have been created by the probiotics in the foods that we ate. And now that these living organisms, these healthy bacteria exist in our gut, they need food. And the food that they take is in the form of prebiotics. And prebiotics are found as an example in these foods. So you can see foods that are, I mean, the great thing about all these foods and the great thing about eating foods that are high in both probiotics and prebiotics is this. Now, it's true, you can get probiotics in pill form, but what would be the advantage of getting probiotics or prebiotics in food form? What would the advantage be over taking a supplement? Shirley?
I think that you get a lot more nutrition from food because it
Exactly.
goes through your system as opposed to taking something that's made. Like, yeah.
Exactly, because you get when you're eating all these foods that are high in probiotics or prebiotics, you're also getting all the vitamins and minerals that come from and the antioxidants in each and every one of these foods. Tomatoes, artichokes, onions, garlics, leeks, asparagus, dandelion greens, chicory, other greens. What do you get? All of these foods have antioxidants in them, all of them. So, and we all know the importance of antioxidants, right? For fighting the free radicals that exist in our body. The free radicals are the bad guys that eat away at our healthy cells. And so the more antioxidants we take in through the foods that we eat, the more our system is able to kill off these free electrons that are circulating in the body. And if we can get those foods and at the same time get our probiotics or prebiotics, it's double the money. So that's why I always tell people to get whatever they're taking supplement wise to see if they can do it first with food. Okay. Now, as far as the probiotics themselves are concerned, two major classifications of probiotics. One is called lactobacillus. The other one is called bifidobacterium. And these are typically found in all those foods. Lactobacillus, the most common probiotic. It's the one found in yogurt and all the other ones that I've shown you. Two types of lactobacillus are Lactobacillus acidophilus and Lactobacillus plantarum. Different strains of each of them can be found in different foods. The benefits of taking in the Lactobacillus probiotic is they're good for yeast infections, bacterial vaginosis, and urinary tract infections. Bifidobacterium, there's more than 50 types of those. Those are also good for urinary tract, genital tract, and digestive tract. There's some research that shows that improves glucose tolerance and hyperlipidemia, which is excess fats in the blood. So lots of research is still ongoing in terms of the benefits of probiotics. It has been shown through research to improve a lot of things from skin infections to tooth decay, gum disease, IBS, IBD, vaginal and urinary tract infections like we just talked about before, diarrhea, especially after a course of antibiotics, and even reduce the severity of colds and flus. So again, taking them in foods or taking them in supplements. As I was just saying earlier, your choice, but whenever you can get a product with whole foods, much better, because you're getting all the antioxidants, vitamins, and minerals with those foods. Verdict. Studied in 2010, this is an old slide actually. Either yogurt or probiotic pills were determined that both provided the body with comparable amounts of microorganisms. Yeah, that basically confirms what I was just saying a few minutes ago. You can get the same amount of probiotic from taking pills or from foods, but when you're eating food, you're getting all the other benefits, the antioxidants, the vitamins, the minerals. All right, let's go on to resistant starches now. Just checking the time to make sure that we have enough time for questions and answers and autographs. I also am having an autograph session at the end of the presentation today. So, and merchandise, I'll be selling my own merchandise too at the end of the session today too. And no, I'm not, I'm kidding. Resistant starches. Okay, here's an introduction to resistant starches.
Some of them are made up of straight chains of glucose molecules joined together. Others, the glucose is joined in sort of branches. And these different kind of starches are not digested the same way. The straight chain starch molecules, which we call amylose, are difficult to digest by enzymes because they pack together very closely, and the enzymes have a hard time getting at these little granules. On the other hand, the amylopectin type of starch is more easily digested. So what? Well, the more easily starch is digested, the more readily glucose gets absorbed into the bloodstream, and we get spikes of glucose. This is not good, especially for diabetics. So what we try to do is to eat less of the starch that drives up blood glucose. We would like to have more of what is referred to as resistant starch. What does resistant starch mean? It resists digestion, and amylose is the one that we are talking about. But people like carbohydrates, we like our pasta, we like our rice, we like our potatoes, and that contains a lot of digestible starch. How do we convert it into resistant starch? Well, believe it or not that difficult. You cook your pasta, you cook your potatoes, you cook your rice, cool it down, and then heat it up again. That will convert some of the amylose into amylopectin, which means that we have less of the easily absorbed glucose, so that more of it goes through to the colon, basically acting as fiber. It also means that we are lowering our caloric intake, because whatever doesn't get absorbed means gets excreted. So by going through this route of taking carbohydrates, taking starchy materials, cooking them, cooling them down, and reheating them, we are reducing our calorie intake, and we're also basically increasing our fiber intake, which means we're reducing the jumps in blood glucose, which is a good thing not only for diabetics, but for everyone else. So no need to completely avoid these starchy foods, but make sure that you cook them in the proper way.
There we go. So there's your introduction to resistant starches. And the reason I love introducing this topic to people is exactly what this fellow was talking about. Let me just go back and share the screen again. Everybody loves carbs. We love carbs, pasta and rice and potatoes, but they've all had a really bad reputation as being high in carbs, and therefore the more we eat, the more, especially if we don't exercise, the more will get absorbed, and that into our, let me put it this way, the more that gets absorbed, that cannot be burned. So if we're eating a lot of carbs, that can't be stored either in the muscle or burned through muscle or stored in the liver as glycogen. The remainder of all the carbs that we eat from potatoes or rice or pasta will get stored as fat. Right? But when we apply these techniques to make these otherwise absorbable starches into resistant starches, then all of a sudden they are less absorbed into our digestive tract, and they pass through, and they pass through as fiber. So let's go into this with a little bit more detail. I love talking about this because it's just so interesting and so few people know about this. So as the fellow was saying, amylopectin is the long chain of carbohydrate starches, and the one that's not so easily broken down because the carbohydrates in this long chain of this long carbohydrate chain are densely packed in, so enzymes can't really get at it to break it apart. But however, the amylose starch, which is in potatoes and in rice and in pasta, that's much more easily broken down. Okay. And because it's more easily broken down, it gets absorbed quicker into the bloodstream. And it creates what that fellow was saying, it creates those spikes, those blood glucose spikes, which we all want to avoid. Because the more we get these blood glucose spikes from eating a lot of carbs, the more we put ourselves at risk for diabetes or pre-diabetes. So how do we turn, as he was saying, how do we turn the amylose starches into more of an amylopectin type starch, which is more of a resistant starch? And that is by cooling down the pasta or the rice or the potatoes that we ate, putting them in the fridge, letting them cool for a couple of hours or overnight, even better. And then the next day, heating them up. And what that does is it converts the amylose starch into amylopectin, and therefore those starches will not be absorbed in the small intestine, but will pass through the small intestine unabsorbed into the large intestine, and by not being absorbed into the lining of the small intestine, it goes through unabsorbed, which means that less of it is going to go through as blood glucose into the bloodstream. Instead, it'll go unabsorbed into the larger intestine, slowing down the digestion. Okay. So how do resistant starches work? A little bit of technical stuff. Bacteria in the colon. So bacteria in the colon, large intestine, will digest the resistant starches. Remember what we said? We said that they pass through the small intestine undigested, right? So they go into the large intestine, and in the large intestine, they do get digested. They do get digested, and then they turn into what's called SCFAs, short chain fatty acids. And one of them is called butyrate. Butyrate blocks the body's ability to burn carbs. And so that's why they're resistant, because they are not being burned as carbs. And if they're not being burned as carbs, they're being, let me read it. This makes it easier. So it prevents the liver from using the carbs as fuel. Instead, stored body fat, recently consumed fat is burned. So what we're doing is we're storing the carbs and burning the fat. Okay, benefits. Many benefits to resistant starches, as we were talking about earlier. It helps reduce the risk of developing diabetes or prediabetes by preventing blood glucose spikes, cancer prevention, butyrate, which is the byproduct, the end product of the digestion of the resistant starches in the large intestine, may protect the lining of the colon, making it less damaging to the DNA, which can trigger colon cancer, heart disease, because we know that high levels of blood glucose, right, blood glucose sugar spikes in the blood can also affect the heart and immune system. We also know that low levels of good for you bacteria in your digestive system, when you have low levels, it's difficult to fight off disease. So this goes back to what we were talking about before, with the benefit of eating more probiotics. And weight loss, obviously, that's an obvious one, right? If we have less of the amylose starches being absorbed into the small intestine, and rather passing through the small intestine into the large intestine, acting as fiber. So the fiber slows down the digestive system, and instead of being absorbed and being stored as potential fat, the starches get directed to the large intestine, and therefore consumed and digested there, preventing weight gain. And it's also shown that when we eat resistant starches, we fill up quicker. So here are different types of resistant starches. So potatoes, we talked about. Rice, we talked about. Yams, we talked about. Beans, so legumes also. Any kind of starch, really. Potato starch, green bananas, and plantains. So any kind of starch, like we talked about, beans, lentils, pulses, in other words, legumes, potatoes, rice, pasta, all of those things can be heated, cooled for a few hours or cooled overnight, then reheated again, and all of a sudden you've got your resistant starches. just like what I just said there. All right, how much to eat? Adding just half to 1 cup of cold-resistant starch per day can reap all the benefits that we talked about. All right, that's my presentation. Great. So, and it's 11:20. Perfect. So any questions about my presentation? I will share a copy of it to you with for each of you if you'd like. All right. No, seriously, any questions?
No, I think I'm good. It was really good, Lauren. Thanks for presenting. It was really well done.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thanks. Thanks so much.
Yeah, and Lorne, I just want to say that was really interesting too. Like I learned things that I didn't know, so that was really good. Very good.
Well, I'm glad you joined us today, Shirley. I really appreciate
Yeah,
that.
no,
Adrian?
I'd like to join all of them. I'd like to see them all.
So next week is going to be March the 5th, and we have Chelsea Campbell. She's going to be talking about the wellness benefits of pet therapy and being in nature. So that one is going to be next week, March the 5th.
Okay,
Tuesday, March the 5th.
I'll be there.
Great.
All
Okay,
right.
everybody.